We are all children of the Roman Empire. Human society in the 21st century is built upon the legacy and influence of this ancient superpower. Beginning as a tiny city-state on the Italian peninsula in the 8th century BC, Rome eventually dominated the Mediterranean world. At the end of the 4th century, the empire was divided into East and West, and the Western Empire collapsed in 476, while the Eastern Empire continued until 1453. Having dominated much of Europe for centuries, Rome left a profound impact on subsequent societies and cultures. The most familiar example is the language. Latin, the official language of the empire, remained the language of scholarship in Europe even after the collapse. Also, Romance languages, such as French and Spanish, derived from Latin, and Germanic languages like English and German have received significant influence from Latin both in terms of grammar and vocabulary. The language is just one among many traces left by Rome, including the calendar, law, religion, and family culture. If Roman dominance hadn't taken place, world history would have been quite different, as well as the present society. The way we are today is inseparable from the historical paths that have led us here. In this sense, the Roman Empire is still alive. What are the legacies from Rome to humanity? The most noticeable example of the Roman legacy is the calendar. The Gregorian calendar, the universal standard calendar today, is based on the Julian calendar introduced by Julius Caesar in 46 BC, with minor corrections made in 1582. The calendar invented by Rome has been used for more than 2 millennia. Before the Julian calendar, the Roman calendar followed the lunar cycle and defined a year as 355 days, so they frequently had to make adjustments, which required astronomical expertise. Such complexity and constant need of correction gave rise to serious problems. First, it was difficult to plan an agricultural and military schedule. Moreover, the calendar was subject to manipulation by the priests in charge. They often abused their right to adjust the calendar, to extend the terms of certain officials, delaying tax deadlines, and so on. By contrast, the Julian calendar defined a year as 365.25 days, based on the solar cycle, so it was simple, clear, and free from frequent adjustments. Eliminated religious and cultural bindings, it pursued a rational and pragmatic structure to better serve the needs of administration, farming, and military planning. Such pursuit of universality and rationality was one of the distinctive features of ancient Rome. From its very beginning, Rome had generosity and diversity as their advantages. They accepted anyone as a member of their community regardless of their origin and background. During Caesar's era, the empire governed a wide range of provinces and incorporated people with various ethnic backgrounds and cultural traditions. In other words, Roman society always had the necessity to include people with various religions and cultures. In order to integrate diverse citizens, it is essential to establish universal and rational principles that are not bound by each individual culture. Perhaps it was the diversity of Rome that enabled the creation of a simple and rational calendar. One of the most defining events in world history is the rise of Christianity in the Roman Empire. As the empire became a Christian state, Europe became a Christian society in the rest of the history. European culture was heavily influenced by Christianity, and in modern era, it was exported to the rest of the world, driven by the Industrial Revolution and imperialism. Its effect is not limited to superficial aspects, such as being the most populous religion in the world, the spread of Christmas culture, or the use of the Christian era to count years. Beyond such things, Christian values are deeply embedded in our norms and values. One of the typical examples is the way we think about love and marriage today. The dominant idea holds some defining characteristics. They require a one-on-one exclusive relationship, It is a spiritual connection yet involves sexual contact. Their relationships are regarded sacred and destined, and ideally expected lifelong commitment. And they choose their partners based on their personal feelings and mutual agreement of the individuals, rather than economic and political interests of the families. Among these features, some of them can be traced back to foundations laid by Christianity, such as the sanctity of a marriage, exclusive one-on-one relationships, and prioritizing personal feelings in partner selection. This ideology was exported to other regions in the course of Westernization, and has been repeatedly reinforced through its portrayal in media, movies, and other forms of entertainment. Put simply, the dominant views on romance today have largely been shaped by history of Europe as Christian society. Originally, human views on sexuality and family were quite diverse. People in different regions at different eras have had completely different values on romance, so there is no absolute standard on who you love and how, what you expect from your partner, and what you find disgusting. It is a product of our biological mechanism and the cultural norms intertwined, and the latter have been shaped throughout history under the profound influence of Roman rule and deeply rooted Christian values. The greatest legacy of the Roman Empire is Roman law. Even after the collapse of the West Roman Empire, Roman law had served as a model for legal systems across European societies. In the modern era, Roman law was adopted as a template to draft the French and German civil codes, which were later exported to other modernizing nations, including Japan. In short, the legal systems in many countries today are the direct descendants of Roman law. The history of Roman law began with the 12 Tables in the 5th century BC. Previously, the laws existed only as unwritten customs, so they were subject to manipulations by priests and aristocrats. In order to prevent their arbitrary application, ordinary people led a movement to codify them. The 12 Tables were simple and unrefined, but through the rest of Roman history for hundreds of years, a lot of precedents were accumulated, and numerous legal theories emerged through the debates of experts. Roman law had gradually been more comprehensive and sophisticated. Emperor Justinian in the 6th century decided to assemble this accumulation of practice and discussions into 4 books. In the both medieval and modern periods, his compilations were continuously referenced as a template for legal systems. This must have been only possible for a vast empire that lasted more than 1,000 years without any significant interruptions. When a state collapses, it is very likely that the pile of practical knowledge and theoretical developments is lost. Also, it is impossible for a single human to construct a perfectly comprehensive legal system. The human capacity to come up with a new idea from scratch is very small, so there had to be trials and errors through implementation, as well as a relay of contributions by many legalists. Besides, it required a vast amount of resources and a powerful centralized government to collect all the legal materials and employ many scholars to compile them. The creation of a refined and exhaustive legal system might be a feat achievable only by the Roman Empire. Long after the collapse of the empire, Roman law has served as a model for legal systems in the 4 corners of the earth. The biggest reason is its universal nature. It was purely rational and abstract, and didn't depend on the values and norms of a specific religion and ethnicity. Therefore, it could be applied to any form of economy and society, and exported to countries with any religion and culture. By contrast, Jewish Talmudic law is closely intertwined with the religious lifestyle of their communities, and Islamic Sharia law is deeply linked to the teachings of the Quran, so they are not applicable to other regions with different cultures and religions. The universality of Roman law also allowed it to be applied across different eras. As times change, some specific details will no longer be appropriate. However, legal scholars in the medieval and modern periods didn't learn the specific descriptions of Roman law, but the essential concept and framework behind them, how they categorized various legal concepts, how they defined them, and how they sought solutions to difficult legal issues in what stance. What later legal scholars found most valuable was not the superficial content, but rather the underlying principles of Roman law. Then, what factors led the Roman Empire to invent such a sophisticated legal framework? From its very beginning, Rome had embraced diversity and valued tolerance. Anyone who identifies themselves as Romans could be accepted as members of the community, regardless of their origin, religion, and ethnicity. Also, Rome expanded its territory by incorporating vast regions as allied cities and provinces whose norms and lifestyles were different from each other. Naturally, they had to think in a universal way that was free from cultural, religious, ethnic, and regional bindings. Roman law may be one of historical cases, exemplifying that a great idea arises where diverse cultures thrive.